I never thought I'd be planning the perfect wedding, only to have another woman show up at my door, claiming she was already his wife. But that's exactly what happened, and I can't believe I didn't see it coming. Looking back now, I can pinpoint the exact moment my life started spinning in this surreal direction. It was a sunny Saturday morning, the kind of bright and warm California day that made me feel unstoppable. I just poured myself a cup of coffee and was about to review some wedding invitations I'd designed the night before. Yes, I was that girl, planning every little detail, when the doorbell rang. My first thought, probably UPS delivering more wedding decor samples. I had no clue what was on the other side of that door would change my life forever. I opened it, expecting to sign for a package or greet a friendly neighbor. Instead, I found a woman standing there, gripping a manila envelope so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had tears in her eyes, but there was also anger in them, like she was seconds away from screaming at the top of her lungs. Her clothes were a bit wrinkled, her hair disheveled, and her expression haunted me. "Is this a bad time?" she asked, voice trembling as if she was trying to hold back something explosive. No," I managed, confused. "Can I help you?" She shoved the envelope toward me, forcing me to take it. I swear, the second my hand touched that envelope, I got this awful chill down my spine. I'd never seen this woman before, but the way she looked at me, it was like I was a villain in her worst nightmare. "My name is Lorraine," she said, clearing her throat, "and I'm Matthew's wife." I think I let out a laugh. I don't know if it was from disbelief, shock, or sheer panic. "I'm sorry, I think there's a misunderstanding. Matthew's my fiancé." "Fiancé?" she repeated, her eyes widening. No, 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 we've been married for almost 4 years." All I could do was stare at her. I couldn't form words, so I just stood there like a statue, my coffee mug still in my other hand. My mind started spinning in circles. Matthew married? That's impossible. We'd been together for almost 2 years. He told me he was divorced. He told me so many things that I believed wholeheartedly. My heart pounded so loudly, I could hear my pulse in my ears. Lorraine took a deep breath. "Look, I'm not here to fight with you. I found the receipts, the reservations you two have for that wedding venue in Napa. I dug through our paperwork at home, and I realized I need to make you aware of the truth." She pointed to the envelope. "That's a copy of our marriage certificate and other documents, like our joint tax returns. Matthew never divorced me." I opened the envelope, my fingers shaking. Sure enough, right there in black and white was proof that she was Mrs. Matthew Hudson. He told me his last name was Hudson, an odd jolt of recognition, like seeing your own reflection in a shattered mirror. The address was the same city where he used to live before he supposedly moved out after the divorce. All those times Matthew described his ex as a manipulative, distant partner he'd parted ways with ages ago, was that Lorraine? The woman standing right here, in tears. Because in that moment, she didn't look manipulative. She looked broken, just like I was starting to feel. I felt heat rushing to my cheeks, and my throat constricted like I might throw up. The words just tumbled out. "I had no idea. He told me you were divorced. He said it was finalized 2 years ago." Lorraine's lips quivered, and tears slipped down her cheeks. "He said the same thing to me about you. He told me you were just a friend, and that you knew we were still working things out." My mouth fell open. He said what? This was impossible. I'd spent holidays with him, introduced him to my family in Denver, posted pictures of us at Disneyland on social media. We were engaged. Everyone knew. Everyone but me, apparently, knew something else was wrong. Thinking back, I recalled little red flags, like how he never let me visit his old place, or how he kept some things vague about his past. At the time, I assumed those were scars from a rough divorce. But now, reality was hammering me in the chest. I'd been living a lie, or maybe living half of his truth. Lorraine sniffled, wiping tears from her face. "I'm sorry to invade your personal space like this, but I had nowhere else to turn. I tried calling Matthew, he blocked me. I went to his office, they said he's traveling. Then I found your Instagram pictures, saw your new ring, and realized I wasn't crazy. He's actually planning to marry someone else. I didn't know what to say. The weight of betrayal was immediate, a sinking feeling like I was strapped to a heavy anchor that just got tossed into the ocean. I whispered, "You're not crazy," though the more I said it, the more I felt I was losing my own sanity. "Does he live here?" she asked, eyeing the hallway behind me. "Because I want to talk to him face to face. No more avoidance, no more lies." I shook my head, trying to steady my breath. "He's on a business trip to Seattle, supposed to come back next week." Lorraine let out a bitter laugh, one that sounded like it belonged in a tragic opera. "Business trip, right? That's what he told me for years. Now I guess I know where he's actually been." We stood there, two strangers bound by the same man's deception. The silence between us was heavy. I had a million questions, but they all collided in my head, leaving me speechless. My mind replayed every conversation, every sweet moment Matthew and I shared, searching for clues that could have hinted he was still married. Finally, Lorraine spoke again. "I'm going to leave you my number. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm telling you the truth. You can Google the records or call the county clerk's office." She paused to fish out a pen and jotted down her number on a scrap of receipt in her purse. "If you want to talk later, please call me. We have to figure out what to do about him." I nodded, numb. This entire scenario felt like a twisted reality show. People watch videos or read confessions online about bigamists and con artists, but you never think it'll happen to you. Without another word, Lorraine walked away. I let the door close, the envelope still in my hands. My coffee had gone cold, my wedding invitations spread out on the table mocking me, pointing to a future that might be a complete sham. "Oh my God," I whispered to the empty room. "Seriously." I sunk down onto the couch, mind racing. Should I call him right now and confront him? Should I call my best friend, Avery, to let her know my fiancé is apparently already married? Should I run to my parents for support? The only thing I knew for certain was that my perfect fairy tale, my dream wedding, my unstoppable love story, had just been hit by a freight train called truth. And I wasn't sure if I could handle the wreckage. That was the first moment I realized my life wasn't just about to change, it had already changed. I just had no idea how deep this betrayal actually went, or how far I'd be willing to go to keep the man I thought I loved. Would I fight for him? Would I walk away? I didn't have answers yet. All I knew was that I'd soon be facing a choice I never expected. Believe the man who promised me the world, or believe the evidence right in front of my eyes. And with the ghost of Lorraine's sorrowful face still fresh in my mind, I had to decide fast, because secrets don't stay hidden forever. And mine had just shown up on my doorstep in broad daylight. I spent the next few hours in a daze. My phone was on the coffee table, face down, buzzing occasionally with texts, friends asking about wedding details, my mom checking in, random notifications. But I couldn't bring myself to pick it up. It felt like if I answered any calls or messages, I'd have to face the truth. And right then, I didn't want to face anything. Eventually, I snapped out of my trance just enough to realize I needed help. There was only one person I trusted for real, no-judgment comfort: my best friend, Avery. She'd known me since college, back when I was still fumbling through a photography degree and dreaming of traveling the world. She'd seen my highs and lows, from heartbreaks to career wins, and she always had my back. If anyone could help me make sense of this chaos, it was her. "Hey girl, what's up?" She answered on the second ring, her voice bright. I inhaled slowly, trying not to crumble the moment I heard her. "Avery, can you come over? Like right now." Something in my tone must have alerted her. She got serious in an instant. "Is everything okay? You sound shaky." "Just come, I'll explain." Within half an hour, she was at my door. She took one look at me, eyes puffy, hands trembling, and her own eyes went wide. "Oh my God, what happened?" I pulled her inside and shut the door, my heart pounding all over again. I thrust the envelope Lorraine had given me into Avery's hands. She flipped through the paperwork, her expression transforming from confusion to shock to pure anger. "What the are you for real?" Avery practically yelled. He never divorced his wife, and he's engaged to you. I sank onto the couch, my voice barely above a whisper. He told me he was divorced. He never said they were separated or on a break. He literally said he was single. We've been planning a wedding, Avery. A wedding that doesn't even have the slightest legal standing if he's already married. Avery paced back and forth, clutching the marriage certificate. That is, I don't even have words. How could he do this? When did you find out? I told her everything. Lorraine's sudden appearance, the confrontation, the details of how Matthew always referred to his ex, how I'd ignored small red flags because I trusted him so completely. With each sentence, Avery's jaw dropped further. "Oh, honey," she said, sitting next to me and pulling me into a hug. "This is massive. Are you okay?" I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. I don't know how to process this. One moment I was picking out flowers for the wedding, and the next I'm holding proof that he's a bigamist, or at least playing some twisted double life. Avery handed the papers back to me. "What are you going to do? Confront him immediately." I shook my head. "He's on a business trip. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. Maybe he's in a meeting, or maybe he's with someone else. I don't even know what's real anymore." Avery's hand clenched into a fist. I swear, if he wasn't out of town, I'd drive to his place and scream at him. "I can't believe he played you like this." Just then, my phone lit up with a text notification. Normally, that wouldn't matter, but in my heightened state of paranoia, every ping made me jump. I leaned forward and saw his name, Matthew. Avery and I exchanged a glance. My stomach flipped. "Oh my God," I muttered, reaching for the phone with shaking hands. The text read, "Miss you. Can't wait to come home. How are the wedding plans, my love?" I almost threw my phone across the room. The audacity, he was still talking to me like nothing was wrong. Like we were planning a sweet storybook ceremony. I showed the text to Avery, who rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "You gonna reply?" she asked. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to launch a raging tirade at him. Another part of me, maybe the part that still loved him, wanted to see if there was some kind of explanation. Could he be forced by legal complications to still appear married on paper? Could Lorraine be lying? But the documents in my hand made it pretty clear. There was no finalized divorce. They were still legally bound. Finally, I typed back, "We need to talk as soon as you can call. Seriously." His response was immediate, "Everything okay?" I just texted no and left it at that. Let him stew, let him wonder. Because right now, he had no idea that Lorraine had confronted me, and I wanted him off balance just like I was. Avery squeezed my shoulder. "You deserve answers. But first, you need to decide how you feel. Do you even still want him to explain, or is this a complete deal breaker?" That question hit me hard. I didn't know. For almost 2 years, I'd believed Matthew was the one. He was so caring, supportive, and we clicked on every level, or so I thought. He'd helped me gain the confidence to pitch my photography work to new clients. He'd encourage me to take small weekend trips for inspiration. "You need to see the world," he'd say. He'd talk about our future house, maybe a kid someday, adopting a dog. It was all so incredibly wholesome. Now, it felt like all those hopes and dreams were built on a foundation of lies. Did I want to salvage any of that, or was it unsalvageable? Part of me hates him, but another part, my voice broke. I can't just shut off 2 years of love, it's so complicated. Avery nodded. I get it. Love doesn't vanish overnight, but you gotta be real about the fact that he's lied to you on a pretty extreme level. We were quiet for a moment, letting the weight of it all sink in. Memories flashed through my mind. Our first date at that little Italian restaurant in Santa Monica, the time he surprised me with tickets to a photography exhibit downtown, the weekends we spent binge-watching shows and eating too much pizza. How could that same man be living another life? Finally, I got up and opened my laptop. My hands trembled as I searched the county court records, just as Lorraine suggested. Sure enough, there was a record of marriage, but no record of a divorce filing. None. Zero. It was just more proof that my reality was a lie. Avery exhaled sharply. Wow, so it's definitely true. I nodded, tears burning at the corners of my eyes. Yeah. Next steps, she prodded gently. I closed my eyes and inhaled. I have to talk to him. I can't make a final decision until I see if there's any possible explanation. Avery didn't look convinced, but she patted my hand. I'll support you, whatever you choose. I offered a weak smile. Thank you, I don't know what I'd do without you. We sat in silence, letting the weight of the discovery settle over us. The wedding magazines on my coffee table suddenly felt like cruel jokes. My engagement ring, it once made me feel so special, now felt like a reminder of how blind I'd been. Let's put this stuff away, Avery said softly, collecting the invitations and floral samples, tucking them into a box. You don't need a constant reminder right now. I nodded, grateful. As she packed things up, I found myself replaying every conversation I'd ever had with Matthew about his so-called ex-wife. He told me she was controlling, that she made him feel suffocated, and he'd moved out long before the final papers were signed. I'd never questioned it because it all sounded so plausible. People have messy breakups, right? And he seemed genuine about the heartbreak. I thought about Lorraine's face, the raw pain in her eyes, and how she looked just as betrayed as I felt. Could it be that he'd fed her some twisted story too, about me being just a friend, a coworker, or something else entirely? The more I considered it, the more furious I became. How long had he expected to juggle both of us? Or was he planning to vanish from one life and fully commit to the other? By the time Avery left that night, I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. Still, sleep was impossible. I tossed and turned, imagining every scenario. Matthew showing up with a million apologies, or maybe gaslighting me into thinking Lorraine was a liar. The worst scenario? That everything was real and he never intended to be honest at all. Hours later, my phone buzzed again, this time a call from Matthew. I stared at his name on the screen, my stomach twisting. Avery had gone home and I was alone in the dark, sweaty from anxiety. Should I pick up? Every bone in my body screamed at me to ignore him, but curiosity and heartbreak got the better of me. I swiped to answer. Hey, I whispered, my voice shaky. Babe, what's going on? You scared me with that text, he said. His tone was smooth, concerned, like the loving fiancé I thought I had. For a second, I couldn't speak. My throat was tight. Then I remembered Lorraine's trembling words, and I forced the words out. Lorraine showed up here, with paperwork. You lied to me about being divorced. Silence, pure, tense silence. Then a muffled sound like he'd just dropped something on his end. I can explain, he stammered. My eyes welled up with tears. Yeah, well, you'd better, because as of right now, our wedding is off. That was the last sentence I managed before I hung up, tears choking off anything else I could say. I set the phone down, my hands shaking uncontrollably. In that moment, I felt something shift deep inside me, like I had just taken the first step onto a path I couldn't veer away from. I still loved him, but this betrayal ran so deep, I couldn't pretend everything was fine. The life I'd been so excited to start was crashing around me, and all I had was a small glimmer of hope that maybe there was more to the story, and that somehow I wasn't a fool for ever loving him. But as the night wore on, that glimmer of hope felt fainter and fainter. My heart pounded, and I knew the real confrontation had only just begun. The man who promised me the world had some explaining to do, and I wasn't sure any explanation could fix this. Yet deep down, a tiny voice whispered, what if he's telling the truth about everything except the paperwork glitch? What if you can still salvage the life you dreamed of? I hated that tiny voice, because it made me realize just how badly I still wanted him, even if that meant risking more heartbreak. And that, more than anything, terrified me. I woke up the next morning feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My eyes were puffy and sore from crying, and my head pounded as if the weight of this secret marriage was literally pressing on my skull. I glanced at my phone, no new messages from Matthew. After our brief, tense call last night, he'd gone silent. That fact alone made my stomach churn with uncertainty. Was he scrambling to come up with some excuse, or was he just ignoring it all? I tried to distract myself with work. I'm a freelance photographer, and I had a client shoot scheduled that afternoon at a local beach. Normally, taking pictures of families or couples at sunset is my favorite part of the job. There's something magical about capturing genuine love and happiness in a single frame. But as I drove to the beach, all I could think about was how those smiling couples might be hiding secrets, too. Could any of them be living a double life, the way Matthew apparently was? "Hey," I greeted the family, forcing a polite smile as I set up my camera gear. They were so excited, two little kids wearing matching outfits, the mom fussing with everyone's hair, the dad cracking jokes to keep the kids happy. I usually love moments like these, but standing there, I felt my throat tighten. Was I just as fooled by Matthew's perfect, joking charm these past 2 years? I pushed through the shoot, snapping shots of the kids racing around, the parents hugging on the shoreline. The bright California sun clashed with my dark, heavy mood. By the end of it, I was exhausted in a way I'd never felt before. The second they left, I found myself crouching down, hugging my camera bag, tears slipping down my cheeks. Everything felt wrong. My dreams, my job, my life, Matthew had cast a shadow over it all. "Get it together," I whispered to myself. Seriously. I needed real answers, not just the swirl of horrible possibilities in my head. So, on my drive home, I tried calling Matthew again. Straight to voicemail. No ring, just that automatic message. I clenched the steering wheel and yelled at my phone, "Coward," as if he could hear me. When I finally got back to my apartment, Avery was waiting in the lobby, scrolling through her phone. She jumped up the moment she saw me, eyes full of concern. "Hey, I brought Chinese takeout. Thought you could use some moral support," she said softly. I nodded, relieved. "Thanks, I'm starving but also nauseous. That's my life now, I guess." We settled in my living room, the warm smell of sesame chicken filling the air. I picked at my food while Avery updated me on what she'd been thinking. "I did some digging," she admitted, twirling noodles around her fork. "Nothing shady, just some online searches about bigamy laws in California. You're not in legal trouble, obviously, but if Matthew tried to marry you while he's still legally married, that's a crime. You could have ended up in the middle of a legal nightmare." I stared at her, a cold dread creeping up my spine. Oh my God, I didn't even think about the legal part. I'm so focused on the betrayal. She nodded, eyebrows knitting together. "I get it. The emotional side is huge, but there's also potential legal consequences for him and heartbreak for both you and Lorraine. This is bigger than just a normal cheating situation. He might have committed a felony." I pressed my hand to my forehead, feeling a headache blooming. What kind of person does that, and why? Maybe he thought he could handle both. Maybe he was planning to leave her for real, but never filed. Or maybe he's just a jerk who wanted double the attention. Avery paused, glancing at me carefully. "Have you heard from Lorraine at all?" I'd almost forgotten that Lorraine had given me her number, though it was tucked away in the same envelope as the legal documents. "No," I answered, sighing. "I haven't reached out. I guess I was waiting to hear Matthew's side first." Avery set down her fork, her expression earnest. "Might not be a bad idea to compare notes with Lorraine. Make sure you both know the full picture, so he can't twist the facts when he finally shows his face." The thought made my stomach twist. I wasn't sure I was emotionally ready to join forces with the woman who was, in a twisted sense, my fiancé's actual wife. But I also realized Lorraine and I were on the same side in this mess. We both deserved the truth. I looked at my phone, biting my lip. Then I pulled out the crumpled piece of paper with her number. "Okay, let's do it," I whispered. Avery squeezed my hand as I dialed. My heart pounded in my chest. Each ring felt like an eternity, until finally, Lorraine's shaky voice answered, "Hello." "Hi, it's me," I managed. "I'm sorry I didn't call sooner. Things have been, well, you know." She let out a breath. "I understand. How are you holding up?" I almost laughed at the question. It was bizarre, bonding over heartbreak with the wife of my fiancé. "I'm honestly not great. But listen, we need to talk. In person. I want to know what really happened from your side. Matthew isn't giving me any answers yet. Lorraine didn't hesitate. I agree. Tell me when and where, I'll be there. So we picked a neutral spot, a coffee shop in a quieter part of town. Avery insisted on coming with me for support. That evening, the three of us gathered around a small table, the awkwardness so thick it was suffocating. Lorraine wore a simple t-shirt and jeans, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired, like she'd aged years in just a few days. I could relate. "Thank you for meeting," I said softly, feeling the sting of tears behind my eyes. "I know this isn't easy for either of us." Lorraine nodded. "I appreciate you being willing to talk. I'm guessing you want details." I nodded and she launched into her story. How she and Matthew had met at a business conference, how they'd fallen in love quickly, married after less than a year. She painted a picture of early bliss, date nights, travel plans, talk of buying a home. But then, everything changed about a year and a half into their marriage. According to her, Matthew started traveling more for work, became distant, moody, and secretive. He claimed money was tight, so he made Lorraine quit her job, telling her he'd support them both if she just took care of their apartment and him. Then he started disappearing on these so-called business trips. He always came back with gifts, apologies, and half-baked excuses. "That was 2 years ago," Lorraine said, tears welling up. "I was naive. I thought we were going through a rough patch. I never suspected he'd actually be living a whole other relationship with you." Hearing her timeline, I felt my stomach flip. That's right around when we met. We've been together almost 2 years. A wave of nausea hit me. This entire time, while he was wooing me, telling me stories about his ex-wife who made him miserable, he was still calling Lorraine his wife at home. Avery looked appalled, pushing her coffee away like the bitterness in the cup matched the moment. "So, let me get this straight. He basically told you to quit your job so you'd be financially dependent, then started a relationship with her." Lorraine nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, and whenever I confronted him about suspicious behavior, he flipped the script, made me feel guilty for not trusting him. I thought maybe I was paranoid or that it was just typical marital problems. But then I found a receipt for a ring, your ring, I assume. He told me it was for a colleague's engagement, something about picking it up as a favor. I wanted to believe him." I stared at the tabletop, my eyes burning. "That's so messed up. He introduced me to his parents last Christmas. They acted like they'd never even heard your name." Lorraine's lips parted in shock. "Wait, his parents? They told me they weren't on speaking terms with him." She blinked rapidly. "Oh my God, so his parents are in on this too." I shrugged, trying to recall any suspicious moments around his parents. They'd been so warm and welcoming to me. I never saw a hint of guilt in their eyes. If they were lying, they're good at it. The tangled web of lies Matthew had spun was more complex than I ever imagined. Avery shook her head in disbelief. "This is insane. He must have told them some huge sob story about Lorraine, or else I don't even know." We all fell silent, the gravity of his deception weighing heavily on our little table. It wasn't just a small slip-up. This was calculated, deliberate. Finally, Lorraine spoke. "So what do we do now? I mean, I'm still legally his wife. But clearly he's planning a wedding with you. That's bigamy. He could go to jail." My heart pounded. I just want the truth. Why would he do this? Was any of it real? Avery touched my arm gently. "Maybe it's time we demand a face-to-face meeting, all three of us. We corner him so he can't wiggle out of it." I swallowed hard, picturing the confrontation. How would Matthew react? Would he break down? Would he try to gaslight us again? Was there some half-reasonable explanation, or was he just a manipulative sociopath? Lorraine's voice was firm. "He can't keep ignoring us, I'm in, but after that—" She paused, her jaw tight. "I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive him, not after this." I had no idea if I could forgive him either. But one thing was clear. I couldn't move forward with wedding plans while living under the shadow of this massive lie. Everything was up in the air, my future, my love, my trust in my own judgment. We made a plan to confront Matthew as soon as he got back from his so-called business trip. I texted him we needed to meet, all of us, no excuses. If he refused, we'd track him down at his office or wherever he was hiding. By the time we left the coffee shop, my head was spinning. I glanced at Lorraine, who wore the same haunted expression I felt tugging at my own heart. Two women, both betrayed by the same man, forced into an alliance by heartbreak. If it wasn't happening to me, I'd think it was a plot from a daytime soap opera. On the drive home, Avery offered a small smile. At least now you have clarity, right? You know you're not crazy. You know Lorraine's not a liar. Matthew is the problem. I managed a weak nod, but clarity felt razor-sharp, painful. The comforting fog of ignorance was gone. Now it was just me, bracing for a confrontation that could shatter my life further or, in some twisted way, bring closure. A part of me still hoped for a miracle, that Matthew would reveal some bizarre misunderstanding or show official papers proving he was divorced. But deep down, I knew that was just denial speaking. The truth was out, and the truth was ugly. And I was about to come face to face with it, no matter how much it hurt. I couldn't sleep the night before the big confrontation. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Matthew's face, wondering if he'd look guilty, defiant, or panicked when he saw Lorraine and me together. By morning, my nerves were shot. I had bags under my eyes and barely any energy to face the day. I texted Lorraine and Avery to confirm we were still on. We agreed to meet Matthew at my place, neutral for me, a bit closer for Avery, and a spot where Matthew couldn't slip away so easily. I told Matthew to come by around noon, insisting we had urgent wedding matters to discuss. He replied with a single okay, no further details. The hours ticked by painfully slowly as I tried to distract myself with mindless tasks, cleaning the kitchen counters, sorting through old mail, even tidying up my closet. But nothing could erase the churning in my stomach. Finally, the doorbell rang. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. I opened the door, and there he stood, Matthew, dressed in his usual business casual attire, looking every bit the calm, reliable fiancé. It almost made me furious how he could appear so put together when my world was in shambles. "Hey," he said quietly, stepping inside. He set his briefcase down, then moved to hug me. I instantly recoiled. His eyes flickered with confusion and maybe a hint of fear. What's going on? In that moment, Lorraine walked out from the hallway where she'd been waiting. Matthew's expression shattered. He froze, his face draining of color like someone yanked the rug from beneath him. "Lorraine," his voice cracked, a mixture of shock and anger. "What are you doing here?" She didn't say anything at first, just stared at him, tears brimming in her eyes. Avery stood behind her, arms folded, glaring at him like she was ready to referee the biggest fight of our lives. I took a deep breath, my chest tight. "Matthew, we know about the marriage, about you never filing for a divorce, all of it." He opened his mouth, then closed it again, searching for words. Finally, he sputtered, "It's not what you think." Lorraine cut him off, her voice trembling with rage. "Don't you dare say that. I have our marriage certificate. You never filed for a divorce and yet you're engaged to her?" She jabbed a finger in my direction. "What's the explanation for that?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking like a trapped animal. I was in the process. I meant to file months ago, but the paperwork got delayed." He tried to sound sincere, but his eyes darted nervously. "I never intended to live this double life. Things just got complicated." "Complicated?" I repeated, my voice sharp, tears threatening to spill over. "You proposed to me while you were still married to her. You said you were divorced ages ago. That's not a paperwork glitch. It's a blatant lie." He stepped closer to me, reaching out, but I backed away. "Baby, please, it's not like that. I swear I was going to tell you. I was afraid of losing you if you found out the truth." Lorraine shook her head, letting out a bitter laugh. "So instead of telling her, you tried to string both of us along? You let me quit my job, thinking we were rebuilding our relationship, while you ran off to be with your fiancé." He whirled toward her. I never said we were rebuilding anything. I told you we were over. She let out a hollow scoff. You kept coming home, Matthew. You never said we were legally separated. You told me we needed some space to work on ourselves, so I stayed in that apartment waiting for you like a fool. My heart twisted hearing that. The man I thought was so caring had effectively manipulated both of us, feeding each one a separate story. I recalled the nights he'd come to my place late, claiming his flight had just arrived or that a meeting had run long. He always had an excuse, gifts, apologies, sweet words. Avery's voice sliced through the tension. Matthew, we've looked at the records. There's no divorce filing. You can't talk your way out of that. So please, for once, be honest. He glanced at her, then back at me. His shoulders sagged like the weight of his own lies was finally crushing him. Fine, you want honesty? Yes, I never filed for divorce. At first, it was because Lorraine and I were still discussing finances. Then I met you. He turned to me, desperation in his eyes. And I fell in love. It happened fast, and I was terrified. I knew if I told you I was still married, you'd leave, and I couldn't risk that. So I told myself I'd handle it quietly, get it done without making a fuss. But then time kept slipping away, and the lie got bigger. I panicked. That doesn't explain the fact that Lorraine thought you two might be reconciling, Avery said pointedly. You had her thinking you were still in a relationship with her. Lorraine nodded, voice quivering. You came home so many times and acted like you cared. You told me I just needed to be patient. You said you were working extra hours to support us. I believed you, you jerk. Matthew swallowed hard, looking guilty. Maybe I gave you false hope, I'm sorry, but I never intended to stay with you. It's just things were complicated. I worried about how you'd manage on your own. I didn't want to hurt you. Too late, Lorraine said bitterly, tears rolling down her cheeks. I felt a surge of emotions, anger, betrayal, sorrow, but also, despite myself, a twisted relief that he actually did choose me at some point, that he claimed he truly loved me. It was confusing and painful, wanting to cling to that love but also hating him for the lies. He turned back to me, voice soft. You have to believe me, I do love you. Everything we shared was real. I was just scared to lose you if you knew I still had these loose ends. Loose ends? She's not a loose end, Matthew. She's your wife, I snapped, my fury finally pouring out. You put me in a position where I almost became part of a bigamy scandal. You told me you were free and clear. You let me plan a whole wedding. Did you ever think about how humiliating that would be if we'd actually gotten married and I found out afterward? He rubbed his forehead. I was going to finalize everything before the wedding, I swear. The date was still a few months away, there was time. Lorraine's laugh was hollow. And if I hadn't shown up, you'd still be lying to her. You'd wait until the last second to file some rushed divorce papers, if you did it at all. A tense silence followed, each of us lost in our swirling anger and grief. Finally, Avery glanced at me, then spoke to Matthew. So, what happens now? Because obviously you've lost their trust. You can't have them both. And legally, you're still tied to Lorraine. Matthew lifted his gaze to me, eyes pleading. I want to fix this. I'll sign the papers tomorrow. We can expedite a divorce. I want to be with you, only you. Lorraine's face contorted with pain. Wow, so that's it? You toss me aside like trash after almost 4 years of marriage. Matthew looked at her, guilt etched on his features. I'm sorry, Lorraine, but we've been over for a long time. I'm just sorry I messed up the process and hurt you in the worst way. I pressed my hand to my mouth, tears prickling again. The man I loved was standing in front of me, professing his devotion, but his words felt tainted, like they couldn't erase what he'd done. Do you really think we can just move forward and pretend this didn't happen? I asked quietly, shaking my head. I've spent days crying over the fact that you lied to me on such a huge level. You put me in a horrifying position. He took a step closer, his voice trembling. I know it's hard to believe, but I do love you. I was an idiot. I was selfish. I wanted to keep you both happy, and that was impossible. Lorraine wiped her tears, staring daggers at him. You're unbelievable. I felt Avery's hand on my arm, a silent question. Are you okay? My thoughts were spinning. Part of me still loved him, but part of me wanted to scream at him to leave and never come back. Lorraine spoke next. I'm going to get my own lawyer and file for divorce myself. I won't wait around for you to do it. You've put me through enough. Matthew gave a small nod. I understand, I'll cooperate, I'll sign whatever you need. She turned to me, her expression softer. I hope you can see that you deserve better than this, but it's your life. Do what you need to do. Without waiting for a response, she brushed past him, leaving my apartment in tears. Avery quickly followed to make sure she was okay, shooting me a look that said she'd be right outside if I needed her. And suddenly, I was alone with him. The silence was deafening. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to protect what was left of my heart. Matthew's eyes were full of regret, but also longing. I know I messed up, he said, voice trembling, but please tell me there's a chance for us. I can't lose you. I stared at him, memories flooding my mind, his surprising me with coffee in bed, holding me after a bad day, dancing in the living room to our favorite songs. All those moments now felt tainted by deceit. Matthew, I whispered, tears falling freely. You broke my trust in the worst possible way. I don't even know who you are anymore. He reached out to wipe away my tears, but I stepped back. I couldn't bear to be touched by him right now. My mind was in turmoil, my heart torn between love and betrayal. I need time, I finally managed. I can't make a decision about us right this second, but don't expect me to just forgive and forget. It doesn't work that way. He nodded, looking devastated. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to prove I'm serious about you and only you. I let out a shaky breath. We'll see. He lingered for a moment, like he wanted to say more, but I turned away, hugging myself. Eventually, he picked up his briefcase and left, the click of the door echoing in the silence. I sank onto my couch, my tears unstoppable. Part of me felt a slight relief that now everything was in the open. Another part felt shattered, knowing the man I loved was capable of living a massive lie. Avery came back inside, wrapped me in a hug, and let me cry. Through my sobs, I murmured, "Why do I still love him? Am I insane?" She stroked my hair. Love doesn't just vanish. You're not insane, you're human, but remember what he's done. Don't let him get away with more lies. I nodded into her shoulder, fighting the heartbreak. Because even though Matthew promised he'd fix everything, I couldn't ignore the nagging thought that this might just be the beginning of a deeper betrayal. And I wasn't sure I had the strength to go through another round of lies, no matter how much I still loved him. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I felt torn in two directions. Part of me wanted to forgive Matthew and salvage the love I believed we shared. The other part wanted to slam the door on him forever. My emotions ricocheted wildly. One minute I'd recall a sweet memory and ache for his presence. The next I'd be furious at how deeply he'd betrayed me. Meanwhile, Lorraine was moving forward with the divorce. She texted me updates here and there, mostly logistical stuff, documents she filed, emails from lawyers, requests for Matthew's signature. I think she was trying to be respectful, not oversharing the messy details. There was a strange sense of camaraderie between us now. We were both trying to escape the lies that had bound us. But we were also walking separate paths toward whatever came next. Matthew tried in his own way to fix the damage. He sent me text messages daily, apologies, promises, declarations of love. Some were downright desperate. I can't eat or sleep without you. I'm signing the divorce papers, I swear. Please talk to me, and so on. He left voicemails that made my heart clench, his voice hoarse with regret. A few times, he even showed up at my apartment with flowers, but I couldn't bring myself to open the door. Avery checked in on me constantly, making sure I wasn't caving in from guilt or loneliness. One evening, she dragged me to a yoga class, insisting that some deep breathing might help me clear my head. Normally, I'd laugh and say yoga wasn't my thing, but right now, I was willing to try anything to stop my mind from spinning in circles. The instructor dimmed the lights, and soft music played while we stretched and breathed. My thoughts wandered. How many times had I pictured walking down the aisle toward Matthew, my heart filled with joy? I'd spent months selecting flower arrangements, tasting cake samples, even choosing a color palette for the bridesmaids I planned to have someday. And it was all based on a lie. I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply, listening to the slow, meditative instructions. Gradually, the tension in my body loosened. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had space to think, really think, about what I wanted. When the class ended, Avery shot me a concerned glance. "You okay?" she asked, rolling up her yoga mat. I managed a tiny smile. "Yeah, actually, that helped more than I thought it would." As we drove home, I tried to articulate what was swirling inside me. I keep waiting for the anger to go away or for the love to go away, but neither is budging. I'm just stuck in the middle. Avery nodded sympathetically. "It's a betrayal of trust, but also a betrayal of the future you envisioned. That's not easy to let go." I fiddled with the sleeve of my water bottle, thinking about Lorraine and how she'd felt so powerless in her own marriage. I guess in a weird way, I feel lucky I found out now, before actually marrying him. She didn't get that chance. "That's true," Avery said softly, eyes on the road. "But it doesn't lessen your pain." Over the next week, I communicated with Matthew only via short texts, usually to respond to some urgent question about wedding vendors or to confirm something about the apartment he used to share with Lorraine. He insisted he was in therapy now, trying to understand why he'd lied. He claimed it stemmed from childhood trauma, something about how his parents' marriage was rocky, and he never learned how to be honest about mistakes. He was pulling out all the stops to gain my sympathy. I wasn't sure if that was genuine or just another tactic to manipulate me. Either way, I couldn't forget the look in Lorraine's eyes or how humiliated I felt when she showed me that envelope with their marriage certificate. Still, a tiny part of me, no matter how foolish, wondered if he truly could change. One Saturday, about 2 weeks after the confrontation, I decided to see him. I called him up, my voice shaking slightly. "Matthew, can we meet at that cafe on Westwood? The one near your office?" He sounded breathless with relief. "Yes, of course. Name the time and I'll be there." We agreed on late afternoon, when the place would be relatively quiet. As I drove there, my hands clenched the steering wheel, and my heart hammered in my chest. I didn't know if I was going to say goodbye or try to find a path forward, but I did know I needed closure. When I arrived, he was already seated in a back corner booth, wearing a simple sweater and jeans, looking more subdued than I'd ever seen him. Usually, he radiated a certain confident energy, but now his shoulders were slumped, his eyes rimmed with sleepless shadows. "Hi," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. I didn't let him lean in for a kiss or a hug. "Thanks for coming," he murmured, voice low. I wasn't sure you ever would." A waitress appeared to take our order. I asked for a chai latte, he just asked for water. Once she left, we were faced with each other in tense silence. "So," I began, my voice sounding steadier than I felt. "You said you wanted to tell me everything. Now's your chance." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I've been working with a therapist for the past couple of weeks, and I've realized how messed up my behavior was. I was scared of confrontation, so I avoided it. I thought I could just keep things separate until Lorraine and I were legally done, but it spiraled out of control." He reached across the table, stopping short of touching my hand. "I know saying sorry isn't enough, but I am sorry, deeply." I met his gaze, searching for sincerity. "So you kept living with Lorraine, at least part of the time, while you were with me?" He bit his lip. "It wasn't full-time. We weren't romantic. I stayed there occasionally because I felt guilty leaving her with rent and bills since I was the breadwinner. In my mind, it was just a matter of being responsible until the divorce was final. But I see now that I gave her false hope and I betrayed you." "False hope," I repeated. "You told her to quit her job, Matthew. That doesn't sound like someone who was planning a quick, clean break." He looked pained. "I know, I regret that every day. I told her to quit back when we were good before I met you. Then things fell apart and I made poor decisions. I didn't know how to handle it." I sipped my latte, the warmth a stark contrast to the chill in my chest. She's filing for divorce, right? He nodded. Yes, she is, and I'll sign. I'm not contesting anything. I just want this to be over so I can show you I'm serious about our future. A shaky laugh slipped out of me. We had a future, Matthew. You destroyed it. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I know, but maybe I can earn a second chance. I'm going to therapy. I'm working through my issues. I'll be fully transparent. No more secrets. For a moment, I pictured a life where he really did change, where we could somehow move past this. But then I remembered how easy it was for him to lie every single day for almost 2 years. Trust isn't something you rebuild overnight. How can I believe you won't hide something again? I asked, my voice cracking. You were so convincing before. You had me planning a wedding, picking out flowers, dresses, even checking honeymoon spots. How do I know you won't do something equally damaging in the future? He leaned in, desperation etched on his face. I can only promise I'll never make that mistake again. You can check my phone, my email. I'll give you full access if that helps. I don't want to lose you. I shook my head, blinking back tears. It's not about checking your phone. It's about knowing you can look me in the eye and tell me the truth. And right now, I don't know that you can. He stared at his untouched water, shoulders sagging. After a long silence, he spoke in a near whisper. So, is this goodbye? I pressed my lips together, tears threatening to fall. My heart was a battlefield, love versus betrayal, hope versus anger. I honestly don't know. Part of me wants to walk away and never look back. Another part remembers how good we were when it was just us, before I found out. He reached out again, this time gently resting his hand on mine. I let him, even though it stirred both comfort and pain in my chest. If there's even a tiny part of you that still loves me, please let me try to prove myself. I won't ask you to trust me fully right away. I know I haven't earned that. But maybe with time. The tear I'd been holding back slipped down my cheek. I sniffled, brushing it away. You've shattered so much, Matthew. I don't think you understand how it feels to question every memory you have with someone you love. I'm starting to, he murmured, and it kills me to know it's my fault. I withdrew my hand. I need more time. Keep going to therapy. Sign the divorce papers. Show me real change. Maybe in a month or 6 months we'll see. But for now, I can't be your fiancé. I just can't. He nodded slowly, swallowing a lump in his throat. I'll do whatever it takes. With that, I stood up, leaving some cash on the table for my latte. My legs felt weak as I walked toward the door. He followed me outside, the late afternoon sun hitting us both. For a brief second, I looked at him, really looked at him. Despite everything, a piece of my heart still yearned for the man I thought he was, but I also realized I had to protect myself now. Take care, I said softly, before turning away. I didn't have the strength to watch him walk back to his car. Over the following weeks, he did exactly what he promised. He sent me updates, screenshots of the divorce paperwork he'd signed, confirmations from Lorraine's lawyer. He forwarded me emails from a therapist's office. It felt surreal, like the last remnants of a battle. Each document was one more piece of proof that he was trying to unwind the mess he created. Lorraine, meanwhile, found a job in a different city. She called me once, letting me know that the divorce was on track and thanking me for being understanding, though we both laughed dryly at that word. There was very little to understand, other than we'd both been lied to in horrible ways. Avery kept me grounded through it all. She'd stay over some nights, watching cheesy rom-coms or making me do random self-care activities. Remember, she'd say, you're worth real, honest love. Don't ever settle for less. Sometimes, I worried I'd never trust anyone again, but she reminded me that healing takes time. As the divorce inched forward and Matthew's calls grew less frantic, I found myself in a strange limbo. Not single, not engaged, just existing in a space where I tried to rediscover who I was without the wedding fantasies. My photography work became my solace. I poured my heart into it. I booked new clients, experimented with different styles, and even put together a small online gallery for a potential exhibition. One day, out of the blue, Matthew texted me, Lorraine's divorce finalizes next week. Would you meet me once it's official? I'd like to talk. I stared at the message for a long time, feeling my heart flutter with nerves. That finalization date loomed like an event horizon. After that, he would be legally single. And I had to decide if I wanted to be part of his new, life-free life. I closed my eyes, thinking back on our conversation in the cafe, the tears, the shaky promises. He had done most of what he said he would. He cooperated with the divorce, stayed in therapy, and kept me updated. I hadn't heard any new rumors of deceit, no sign of any other hidden wife. The cynic in me wanted to say, so what? That's the bare minimum. But a softer part of me felt a quiet longing, remembering the man who made me laugh and dream before everything blew up. Okay, I finally replied. Let's meet after it's final. The next week crawled by. I kept busy with work, ignoring the nagging anticipation in my stomach. On the day of Lorraine's final hearing, Matthew didn't text me, maybe out of respect, maybe out of anxiety. It wasn't until that evening that I saw a new message pop up. It's done, signed by a judge, whenever you're ready. I stared at those words. It felt so bizarre. My fiancé was no longer married, but it wasn't a cause for celebration like normal divorces might be for someone leaving a toxic situation. It felt overshadowed by betrayal, guilt, and heartbreak. Still, I agreed to meet him again, this time at a public park near my apartment, right before sunset. When I arrived, he was sitting on a bench, fiddling with his phone. As soon as he saw me, he stood up, his face etched with nervous hope. We sat down together, the fading sun casting golden light across the grassy field. So, he began, voice trembling, I'm legally single, no more secrets, no more half-truths. I nodded, hands folded in my lap. I never wanted it to be like this. He sighed, looking out at the sky. Me neither. For a few minutes, we sat there in silence, watching a couple jog by, listening to the rustle of leaves. Finally, he spoke again. I've been talking a lot in therapy about how I lied to myself as much as I lied to you. I convinced myself I could handle it, that I was protecting everyone. But I was just running from consequences. I studied his profile, the tension in his jaw, the regret in his eyes. What's your plan now? He turned to me, eyes soft. Honestly, my plan is to continue therapy, keep working on my issues, and hope someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I'm not asking for a wedding tomorrow, just the chance to show you I can be the man you deserved all along. My heart pounded. Part of me wanted to stand up and declare, you hurt me too much, I'm done. But another part, the part that still loved him, whispered, maybe he really can change. It was the hardest internal battle I'd ever faced. Eventually, I spoke, my voice small. I need to see consistent honesty, Matthew, full transparency. And I need you to understand that my trust in you is almost gone. If we ever do get back together, it'll be a long, slow process. He reached out, gently taking my hand. I let him, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine, remembering 1,000 little moments of affection. I'll wait, he whispered, as long as it takes. Tears welled up in my eyes. I still felt so broken, but there was a fragile spark of hope. No promises, I murmured. I might decide I can't do this, but maybe I can try, one small step at a time. A tear slipped down his cheek, and he nodded. That's more than I deserve, thank you. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of pink and orange. In that moment, I thought about how sunsets signal both an ending and a transition into night. Maybe that was fitting. The end of his marriage, the end of my naivete, but also a chance for something new to grow in the darkness. Maybe we'd find our way back to a morning full of light, or maybe we wouldn't. Either way, I was no longer powerless. We rose from the bench and walked toward our cars. The air was cool, a gentle breeze lifting the weight of the day off my shoulders just a little. Before parting ways, he turned to me one last time. I love you, he said quietly. I swallowed hard. I know you do, in your own way. Let's see if we can figure out what that means now. He nodded, a faint smile ghosting his lips, and then he left. I stood there, watching him go, feeling a mix of sadness and cautious relief. If nothing else, the secrets were finally gone. Now it was up to me whether I could accept him in the aftermath or whether I wanted to. As I drove home, the city lights flickered on, one by one, illuminating the roads. I pictured Lorraine somewhere, signing her final documents, beginning a new life. I pictured the wedding plans I'd tucked away in a box, gathering dust. And I pictured myself, uncertain but determined to reclaim my own story. One step at a time, I repeated under my breath, like a mantra. Because that was the only way forward, even if it led me somewhere I'd never expected to go. For a little while after that evening in the park, I convinced myself there was a glimmer of hope. Matthew stayed true to his word about therapy. He even forwarded me a few of his session receipts, as if to prove he wasn't just pretending. He tried to rebuild trust one small step at a time, emailing me monthly budgeting spreadsheets so I could see where his money went, texting me whenever he arrived somewhere so I'd never wonder if he was lying about his location. It felt over the top, but part of me appreciated the effort. Another part hated that it had come to this, monitoring his every move, second-guessing every word. I tried, I really did. I allowed myself to remember the reasons I'd fallen in love with him in the first place. His goofy laugh, the way he'd surprise me with homemade pancakes on random Sunday mornings, the comfortable ease of our shared routines. Sometimes we'd go a whole day talking about everyday things, my photography, his work changes like a normal couple. Then at night, I'd lie awake, recalling how he'd lied for 2 years straight. My heart and head were constantly at war. A month after Lorraine's divorce finalized, I got a text from her. We hadn't spoken much, aside from the occasional update about financial paperwork or apartment details. So when I saw her name pop up, I froze, worried about what else she might have discovered. My heart hammered as I opened the message. "Can we meet? It's important." I agreed, nerves spiking. We settled on a small diner near her new workplace. She'd mentioned she finally found a decent job, though she never gave me all the details. The next day, I arrived early, sipping a glass of water while my stomach lurched. She walked in wearing a simple blouse and slacks, looking more put together than I'd ever seen her. Still, her eyes carried a weight I recognized all too well. "Hey," I said softly, feeling odd that we were meeting yet again, bound by the same man's actions. "How are you?" She sat down, her hands clasped tightly on the table. "I'm coping. Starting over is hard, but that's not why I wanted to see you." She paused, eyes downcast. "There's something you need to know, something I just found out. I wasn't sure if I should even tell you, but you deserve the truth." My pulse kicked up. "What is it?" She hesitated, then exhaled shakily. "I'm pregnant." The words hit like a sledgehammer. A swirl of disbelief and dread rushed through me. "You're pregnant with Matthew's child." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm almost 3 months along. I only discovered it a couple weeks ago. I'm guessing it happened one of those last times he came home. He claimed it was just to sort out finances, but we. I pressed my hand to my mouth, feeling my own tears threaten. My mind flashed to the conversations Matthew and I had about therapy, about moving forward with complete honesty. Not once did he mention that he'd been physically intimate with Lorraine right before their final breakup. I didn't even know if he realized she was pregnant or if he was still hiding secrets from me. Lorraine wiped her eyes, voice trembling. "I'm not trying to trap him or anything. Honestly, I don't even want his help. But I thought you should know before you two get any deeper. He might be telling you he's changed, but this is proof he's still not telling the full story." My stomach churned as a wave of betrayal and sorrow ripped through me. If Matthew knew about this and hadn't told me, that meant he was still lying. If he didn't know, well, that was another kind of heartbreak entirely. Either way, it changed everything. "Lorraine," I managed, swallowing past the lump in my throat, "thank you for telling me. I'm so sorry you're going through this." She brushed away a tear. "I'm sorry too. Sorry you got dragged into his mess, but I won't hide this. It's too big. He deserves to know, and you deserve to know." We sat there in silence for a few more moments. It felt like the universe had just spun off its axis, again. Finally, she let out a trembling sigh. I've already decided to keep the baby. I'll do it on my own if I have to, but I'll understand if you can't be around him anymore. She pushed a folded piece of paper across the table. Here's my new address if he needs to reach me. I took it feeling numb. I appreciate it. When she left, I stayed in that booth for a long time, staring at my reflection in the window. My life kept shattering in waves. Every time I thought I could piece it together again, a new reality came crashing down. I loved Matthew, or at least, I loved the version of him I believed in. But how could I build a future with someone whose past kept crawling out of the shadows? Eventually, I dragged myself to my car and drove straight to Matthew's place. My hands shook so badly I could barely keep the steering wheel steady. By the time I arrived, tears burned my eyes, half from anger, half from heartbreak. I banged on his door, ignoring the rational voice in my head telling me to calm down. He opened it with a startled expression. "Hey, I wasn't expecting you." "She's pregnant," I blurted, voice cracking. "Lorraine is pregnant." His eyes widened with genuine shock. "What? Are you serious?" "Don't you dare pretend," I snapped, stepping past him into his living room. "Did you know?" He closed the door behind me, shaking his head rapidly. "No, honestly, I had no idea." I studied his face, trying to detect a lie. His pupils were blown wide, skin pale. It looked like real, raw surprise. "So you slept with her just before you left for good and never thought about the consequences?" I asked, voice trembling. "You've been telling me for months that you were committed to therapy, that you wanted a fresh start. Did that not include telling me you'd been intimate with your ex-wife recently?" He exhaled heavily, raking a hand through his hair. "We'd been distant for a long time, but yeah, there was one last time. I regret it, but I never thought this would happen." He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "I swear I didn't know. She never told me." "Matthew," I whispered, tears running down my cheeks, "you keep talking about how you're done lying, how you want to rebuild trust. And yet here we are with another bombshell. I can't do this anymore." He looked up at me, eyes full of panic. I get that this is huge, and I get that you have every right to walk away, but I swear this time I'm not lying to you. I had no idea." I believed he was genuinely caught off guard, but that hardly dulled the pain. "Now you're about to be a father, whether you like it or not. How does that fit into the future you keep promising me?" He stood, crossing the room toward me. I stepped back, not wanting him too close. "I have to take responsibility," he said quietly. "I won't abandon my own child. If Lorraine wants financial support, if she wants me involved, I'll do my part." He hesitated, anguish flooding his expression. "But I still want you in my life. I need you." I wiped at my cheeks, my voice unsteady. "You're going to be tied to her forever. After everything that's happened, you expect me to sit by and watch you co-parent with the same woman you lied to me about? The same woman you never officially divorced until recently? The same woman who showed up on my doorstep, telling me she was your wife?" He stared at me, heartbreak clear in his eyes. "I'm not saying it'll be easy, but I love you and I'll do whatever it takes." I let out a trembling breath, my chest tight. "Matthew, we've been doing this dance for months now, apologies and promises, but I can't unsee the pattern. I was willing to try, to wait, to see if you'd truly change. But this is bigger than all of us." He reached for my hand, desperation in his voice. "Please don't leave me." "Stop," I managed, choking on a sob. "Stop making me the bad guy for walking away from your mess. If you had been honest from the beginning, if you'd even been halfway honest, we might have had a chance. But you dragged me into a nightmare. And now there's a child involved." I yanked my hand free, tears blurring my vision. I could see the pain in his face, but I also felt my own heartbreak giving way to a grim clarity. "I'm done," I whispered, voice wobbling. "I can't do this. I deserve a life that doesn't revolve around your lies and complications. I'm sorry, but I'm choosing me this time." His face crumpled. "I understand," he said softly, his voice wrecked. "I'll never forgive myself for doing this to us." I didn't trust myself to speak again, so I turned and left. The second I reached my car, I broke down, sobs racking my body. I mourned the fantasy I once had, our wedding, our supposed forever. But I also felt an odd sense of liberation. I knew that if I stayed, I'd be drowning in a cycle of half-truths and heartbreak. Even if he was telling the truth now, the damage ran too deep. A week later, I found the strength to box up the last remnants of our wedding plans, the invitations, the dress ideas, the color swatches. I felt numb as I tucked them into a closet, unsure if I'd ever want to see them again. My heart still ached, but the ache was laced with a determination to heal. Avery hugged me tight, telling me I made the right choice. As for Lorraine, she texted me once more. "Thanks for hearing me out. I'm sorry for everything. I wish you peace." I replied with a short note wishing her well in her pregnancy. No matter how complicated it was, a child didn't deserve to be unloved. I hoped Matthew would step up and be the dad that kid deserved, even if I'd never see him again. Over the next few months, I relearned how to be alone. I focused on my photography, landed a gallery spot for my work, and threw myself into capturing images of people who reminded me that love can still be real and pure. Sometimes, I felt a pang of jealousy. Why couldn't I have that honest love without the deceit? But each day, it hurt a little less. A quiet realization grew in me. Some lessons cost you everything you once thought was secure. I'd lost my fiancé, my illusions, and the future I believed we were building. But in losing those things, I discovered my own resilience. I realized I didn't need to cling to someone else's false promises. I had the strength to walk away, even when part of me still loved him. Occasionally, I'd catch myself wondering if Matthew truly changed, or if he simply traded one life for another again. But I let those thoughts drift away, reminding myself it was no longer my burden. I'd chosen to free myself from his tangled web of lies, and that choice, though painful, felt right. One crisp morning, months later, I stood on a coastal bluff, camera in hand, waiting for the sunrise. The sky transformed from deep blue to a palette of pink and gold, and as the sun broke over the horizon, tears filled my eyes, but this time they weren't from grief. They were from hope. "Love needs trust," I murmured, snapping a photo of those first brilliant rays. I only learned that when I lost it. And in that moment, I realized I was finally on the other side of heartbreak. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape, without secrets, without lies, and without a man who promised me the world yet couldn't give me honesty. I felt the wind on my face, breathed in the salty air, and smiled. The world was still beautiful, even after everything I'd been through. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.